How is it going? Let me just make sure that our audio and everything is looking good, sounding good, that we are coming in, broadcasting live, and we are. That's awesome. Sweet. Might need to tone this down just a little bit, but that's okay. All right. So here we go. Let me just make sure we're good here. Sorry. Trying to turn my back to the camera. All right. Well, this should be going here in just a minute. All right, guys, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to be doing a series of shorts. Short being short videos over the course of, I don't know, however long it takes. Probably indefinitely, because I kind of like doing these, and they're really helpful. We're going to kind of blend all these together into kind of a comprehensive topic. And the topic that we're going to be talking about today, in kind of in the coming months, and intermixed with other content, is airport operations and heliport operations. Okay, really quick, this will probably be less than 10 minutes. Many of you know this. Many of you need a refresher. I know I needed a refresher on a few of these things. Many of you who are preparing for a career in flight or transport medicine will need to know these. We are starting to see some of these topics come up on the flight paramedic certification exam. So this should be helpful to you. Airport and heliport operations, okay? Let's get into it. Just a couple topics I want to talk about. Helipads, okay? Are they safe? Are they not? How do you really know? What we're talking about in this particular slide is, well, this is just kind of intended to kind of give you a view of what a helipad may look like from the air. Some helipads are rooftop, some helipads are ground level, some helipads are big, small, some of them are in the dirt. But what you will notice about this particular helipad, if it is related to a hospital, it is always a red H. Maybe I'll do this in red because that actually would make a little bit more sense, right? If I did this, it is a red H surrounded by a white cross. Okay? That's what you see here. That marks a hospital-based helipad. If it is at an airport, you will just see the red H. All right. Something else to keep in mind, and it's kind of hard to see in this particular picture. This picture was an aerial picture that I took just last week. I want you to pay particular notice to this guy right here. Okay? It's kind of hard to see from the air. I actually zoomed in on this picture. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of clarify what I'm talking about right here. On all helipads, or most helipads, according to the Federal Aviation Regulations, Aeronautical Information Manual. This is an old one. You can find this information online. You can also talk to your pilots. They will also have access to that. It explains what exactly this is. Two numbers mark the helipad. The top number is the maximum weight that this particular helipad can handle in thousands of pounds. So in this particular case, this helipad is rated for 12,000 pounds. The lower number is the maximum diameter of the rotor system that is safe for this particular helipad in feet. So with this particular pad, 44 feet is the maximum rotor diameter that can land on this particular pad. Well, then the next question that needs to be asked is, do you know how much your aircraft weighs, and do you know what the rotor diameter is? The aircraft weight, I'll tell you, for the most part, is going to be sufficient. The H125, otherwise known as the A-Star, the max gross weight of that particular aircraft is somewhere around 5,600 pounds. All the way up to, standard aircraft used in air medical, the largest one being the Augusta 169, and that one is right around 10,000 pounds. Okay, so in this particular case, this pad is able to support both of those aircraft and anything else in between. Now the rotor diameter, I'll tell you that the smallest rotor diameter for any of the aircraft that I looked at, and I looked at the H125, otherwise known as the Airbus, the Bell 407, the EC-135, the EC-145, and the Augusta 169 and the Bell 429. The largest rotor diameter was 39.75 feet, and that was for the Augusta 169. I believe the Bell 407 has a rotor diameter of 33.5 feet. So in this particular case, we're good. For those of you who are flying H-125s or the A-Star, the rotor diameter on that particular aircraft is 35 feet. All right, so top number, maximum weight in thousands of pounds that this pad can handle. Lower number, maximum rotor diameter. Good information to know, good information to pay attention to if you're coming into an LZ that you're not familiar with, a tight rooftop pad, just have a good understanding. Okay, moving on. Next thing I want to talk about is airport operations, IFR or VFR. Do you know, is it safe? Now, the one thing I want to say about this particular slide is this is not a replacement for using good judgment, checking your nav aids, checking your weather reporting, checking your airport weather reportings, but this is another tool that you can use to help you determine whether or not a particular airport may be under IFR conditions. Now, first of all, we need to define what IFR conditions are. For different programs, they may have more strict IFR limits, but in this particular case, according to the FAA, they say that an airport is under IFR conditions if the visibility is less than 3 nautical miles during the day, or the ceiling is less than 1,000 feet. Okay, this is daytime operations. Why does this matter? Because what we're talking about is the beacon. Okay, I want to point this out. All airports have beacons, helipads at hospitals have beacons, ground-based heliports, sea-based heliports, they all have a beacon. And we know that those beacons are regularly on at night, not always, but they're usually not on during the day. Now, if the controls for that beacon can be turned off by the tower, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes the tower will actually turn on that beacon during daytime operations when the airport is under IFR conditions. So if you're flying through, if you're transitioning through an area, you're in VFR or marginal VFR or low VFR conditions, and you look out and you see an airport, or you know that there's generally an airport there and you see a beacon, that may be telling you that that particular airport is under IFR conditions. And you should be cautious about flying into that area, okay? So, beacon on during the day may mean that airport is under IFR conditions. Moving on. Next thing I want to talk about are airport operations or runway terminology, okay? For those of you who have been flying, you probably know this. For those of you who have not been flying, you may not. So, all airport runways are given a 2-number designator. In this particular case, this runway is 09. What does that mean? This relates to the direction. The way you can remember this is you always add another 0. So 09 is pointed in the direction of 090. What does that mean? On a compass, there are 360 degrees. You start from 000 at straight up, and you go clockwise 360 degrees all the way back around to straight up. So north is labeled 000, or actually a better way to do this might be to reverse these. 360 and 000. Okay, so a runway that is 09 or 090 is pointed in an easterly direction. We can divide the compass into 4 quadrants. We have 000, we have 090, we have 180, and we have 270, and then back up here to 360. So if you look at a runway or you hear somebody call a runway that is, they are landing 09, they are landing in an easterly direction pointed towards the 090. Okay, the reciprocal of that is going to be 27 or 270 and any fraction of 10 in between. A runway will not be 095 or labeled 095. It will only be in 10 or whole digit increments of 10. Okay, so what does that mean? Let me give you another example. You may have runway 14. Let me write it down here. You may have runway 14. You may have runway 22. You may have runway 31. Okay? Add another 0. That is the direction that that particular runway is pointed. So 14 is pointed in this direction. 22 is pointed in this direction. And 31 is pointed in this direction. Okay, that's going to be really important in our next slide, okay? Now we need to talk about traffic patterns, okay? This is another aerial view of an airport. You can see the runway here. Now I don't know what direction this is pointed because I don't have a compass rose. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that we are on the same runway that I just showed you 2 slides ago. This is runway 09, okay? In order to understand where an aircraft is approaching from, we need to understand some terminology. So this particular runway is 09, the reciprocal is 270. So if somebody says, well, let's go ahead first and label these directions, okay? So these are all relative to runway 09. The upwind is parallel in the direction of 09. This is called the upwind. Okay? On the far end of 09, this is called the crosswind. Then we have the downwind. And then we have base. Okay? Now think about it. We are always, well, the reason they use this terminology is it's just relative to the direction of the runway, but most of the time, airplanes or helicopters, they are landing into the wind. So if you are planning on landing into the wind, then the wind is coming down. Okay? The downwind leg is in the same direction as the wind, versus the upwind leg is in the opposite direction of the wind. Now, keep in mind that the terminology is not relative to the true direction of the wind. It is just relative to the direction that you are landing. Let me give you an example. It is possible that the wind is coming out of the due north, but you would still be landing 090. This would still be the downwind leg. Okay, so why is this important? A terminology that you will hear when you are flying around is somebody will say, medevac 1-2 is on the downwind leg, the left downwind leg for 09. Okay? Left downwind versus right downwind. Okay, let's just write that down so we have that information. They are on the left downwind leg for 09. Okay, so here's what you need to imagine. You are sitting here on runway 09, and you would look to the left. They are on the left side of the runway. They are to your left on the downwind leg. Okay, so that means that they are to your left coming at you. Now, if they said they are on a right downwind for 09, they would be on the opposite side of the runway, but still coming at you. Okay, and that's where it's important to understand direction relative to the runway and whether it's left or right, and what the perspective is for you as the aircraft sitting on the runway. Okay, now imagine you're out, but here we go. Oops, let's get rid of that. Oh, come on. All right, now let's imagine you are up here. You are in your helicopter. All right, and you are flying this direction towards the runway. And you hear somebody call out, I am on a left downwind, Cessna 121 Papa Papa is on a left downwind for runway 09, getting ready to turn base to final. What does that mean to you? That means that this aircraft, this helicopter, or this airplane that is on the left downwind, getting ready to turn base to final, they're approaching you. They're very close to your aircraft, so you need to be aware of where they are. You need to be looking for them. Now, let's just imagine that you are on the opposite side of the runway. You're flying this way. You're down far end of the runway, and you hear somebody call out that I am on the right upwind, right upwind for 09. Okay, they are on the right side of the airport. They are flying in an upwind direction, getting ready to go into or